as we look at the negotiations between the UAW and the Big Three, we often focus on wages, and for good reason, and they're far apart on that issue, it seems like still. But there are other issues as well, right? I mean, we think about pensions and wage tiers, a lot of moving pieces here. And one reason I think some people think this could actually drag on for a while. What's your take?
I think it could be a while. Every day, every week that goes by that we don't see a deal, it looks like there's going to be an expansion of the targeted strike. We saw that again this week with two more factories. There's one near Lansing, which makes the Buick Enclave and the Chevy Traverse, and then another Ford factory that makes the Explorer and the Lincoln Aviator. Those are definitely significant factories to go offline for these two automakers. I was a little bit surprised, frankly, to see that there was a fair amount of progress on the Stellantis front, and Stellantis was not included in this latest round of the strike expansion. So I think the more the time passes, the harder it could be to get a deal. I mean, ultimately, they're going to have to work this out. So it will end at some point, but it seems like they're pretty far apart right now. I mean, specifically, I think the wage issue is something they're going to be able to iron that out. At some point, you kind of come together, you look at the numbers, and you make a deal. But there are probably more significant issues like pensions, like the tier system, like the access for the UAW to unionize some of the battery factories. Those are all critical sticking points, and it doesn't seem like they're making a lot of progress there.
Well, there's the substance of the negotiations, and then there's the rhetoric surrounding the negotiations. And on that point, it feels like the claws are now coming out at this stage. I'm just looking at some reports from an automotive news reporter that says that, quote, Sean Fain is saying Jim Farley is lying about the state of negotiations, and kind of get some other barbs in there. In your time, looking at this strike and other strikes, how much does that factor in? In other words, like if they're very publicly being sort of nasty to one another, what does that signal about the negotiations?
I mean, sometimes it means nothing. Sometimes it's all basically, made for TV, and then what's going on behind the scenes can be very productive. I think perhaps in the past we've seen some of that. The most recent strike that lasted for over a month in 2019 that impacted General Motors. There was definitely some rhetoric, some animosity that went around, but by and large, they did eventually get a deal done in fairly reasonable order. This time around, I think Sean Fain, the UAW president, has done a very good job of sort of controlling the narrative. He's been very active on social media, on Facebook and YouTube, and those are all like modern media tactics that we haven't really seen from the union in recent years. So he's been very, using that in a savvy manner. Today, I think you saw Jim Farley, who had a press conference at 1 o'clock Eastern time. I think he kind of hit back. He is an executive who's known for basically saying what he thinks. And I think his sort of frustration showed through today. He definitely tried to make his case and, take it directly to the media, to the people, on their own live stream today. So it definitely seems like not only are the sides farther apart, in the case of Ford, it does seem like things are, definitely heating up in perhaps a negative way.